we're here to promote the movie Canal Street, correct?
Correct.
Now, what brought you, Rhyan, to this particular film to begin with?
What brought me to this film? We wrote this script in 2005. Moved to Hollywood. This was that, script where the filmmaker gets on a plane or a bus or by caravan, whichever way you get there. And this was that golden script that we wanted to get out to the masses. It took us this long to get it made. It took us this long to get people to believe in us enough to be able to tell our stories. Growing up in the city of Chicago, there was a lot of diversity, a little bit of influence when it came to the film game at the time. And so the only place we could go was L.A. Times have changed now. The city of Chicago is booming, and just happy to be a part of what's making things move in Chicago.
What could you attribute to why Chicago is booming the way it is in regards to film, from Lena Waithe to, I think I saw this morning, Matthew Cherry has a new show coming out called The Red Line because he's from Chicago. So what could you say is like why people are reinvesting in terms of Chicago filmmaking?
Well, I'll start with The Red Line. Shout out to Ava DuVernay and Forward Movement, because they just brought that to Chicago. Lena Waithe has The Shine, another project out there. Chance is shooting films out there. Chicago PD, I can go on, the list goes on and on. But if you remember back in the late 80s, Chicago was the Mecca. It was only because our tax credit got cut that our former mayor, Mayor Daley, cut and chopped away, where there were no more tax incentives. So people already didn't want to shoot because it was cold out there. But then you get no tax incentives, no real going. People started going to Toronto. Mm-hmm. People started going to Atlanta, back to LA, and so it just kind of lost the luster of it. 2-3 years ago, we got our tax credit back. And that's when shows like Empire came. That's when PD came. That's when these shows started to come back, and CineSpace was built. And from CineSpace, things started to grow. And, at the end of the day, sometimes people just get tired of seeing the same scenery. You want to switch it up. Chicago has so many different landscapes. The city's beautiful in a lot of different ways, and we haven't seen it, in a while. So I think it became very attractive again to the filmmaker, to the cinematographers, to the people that were shooting the landscapes. And not to mention, Chicago is where it's at anyway.
Chicago definitely has an alarming list of artists, whether it be singers, poets, rappers that are like killing it. And I've always said that if it's not LA, that's the most consistent hub for music, is Chicago, and then Atlanta. And then we factor in there somewhere somehow. But so Canal Street, like what brought it on to say like, yo, we need Bryshere Gray from Empire, we need Woody McClain in this film? Like, tell me about the star power, because you don't necessarily see an independent film like this have such like immediate people that you immediately like, oh, I know that person.
That question comes up a lot, and the simple answer to that is you just have to ask people. The worst thing they could do is say no. But a lot of times these actors, they're working on these shows like Empire. You mentioned Woody doing Bobby Brown. They want to get roles that challenge them. Obviously they're going to do shows where they get that bag, mm-hmm. But then it's like, all right, I got the bag. Now, what can challenge me? I've played Hakeem. I played Michael Bibbs. I haven't played, a kid from the south side of Chicago who's lacking confidence, who's trying to find himself, in this world, where I can strip down, the expensive clothes. I could put on the braces. I can lose myself in a role. So a lot of these actors, they gravitated towards the project because of the story, because they saw what we were trying to build from an independent level, and they were, I think they were impressed by the level of professionalism that we brought, even at an independent level.
Right, because it's a major cast. Like, if I could even read off the list of names, you'd be like, God dang, why is this not like in like major theaters? So we're talking.
It will be in major theaters.
Oh, yes. Okay, turn up then.
Yeah. This movie will be in major theaters across America. 1/18/19, we will be in theaters literally across America.
So if I could read off this list of people who are going to be in the film that Ryan has put together, McClain Williamson, who is Bubba from Forrest Gump. You got Mekhi Phifer. You got Woody McClain. You got Harry Lennox. You have Lance Reddick. You have Jamie Hector. You have Clayne Crawford. You have D.B. Sweeney. You have all these big names. But the one aspect of it that kind of drew me in a lot was the faith aspect. Now, Pastor, Bishop, I remember y'all having a conversation before we began, like which one ranks higher. So for the audience at home, explain what particularly is your position and what brought you to this film as well.
No problem. Good to be here, and thank you for your support toward Canal Street from 97.9. Bishop Eric Garnes, one of the executive producers for Canal Street movie, and yes, there is a faith-driven component running throughout this movie because the trial and the treasure of pressure that Coley Styles goes through, his faith is on trial also. Not just justice is on trial, but whether should I or should I not believe God? How did I get into this? Will God bring me out of this? Can I keep my faith while the pressure is on between the justice system and the people I thought were my friends no longer being my friends? Therefore, there lies the idea of bringing faith into the piece, because we get the privilege of telling the story of the gospel of Jesus Christ through film, through big screen. So many people are accustomed to being in the traditional setting of the church, in the box, listening to the pastor from the pulpit speak, and they believe sometimes that's the only way the gospel can speak. This is another opportunity and another medium. We get to spread the gospel on the big screen, and people who wouldn't take our invitation to the church on a Sunday morning will not have a problem or hesitate to take our invitation when we say, come to the movies with me.
That's a very strong answer. Very, very strong answer. I felt God like literally just come jump at me for a second. But in regards to this film and how Coley Styles kind of comes towards Jesus and kind of that testament, it's kind of like, I would say, The Last Temptation in a sense, right? In that you're trying to think about, like, wait a second, where exactly am I, right? Am I a man of God, or is this always going to burden me?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we see in current times as now that faith in regards to how people like maintain and hold on to their sanity is such a big prevalent thing. Last week in your native Chicago, Ryan, the trial of Quan McDonald.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not saying the trial of Quan McDonald. It's Jason Van Dyke who was on trial.
Van Dyke trial, yeah.
Yes. Quan McDonald was the 16-year-old black teenager who was shot and killed by Van Dyke.
Yes, sir.
For you, Bishop, do you believe that we need to lean towards the faith often, not only in times of like trials and tribulation, but also in times of triumph?
Very much so. That's a good way of putting it. Tribulation, trial, pressure, leaning on our faith is important as a fabric of lifestyle. Not just because a 911 exists in our lives do we start to increase our faith. We're designed to live by faith. We're designed to walk believing God and believing that we can be all that we believe we could be through the power of Christ as well as in ourselves. And when we understand that, as Coley Styles comes to understand that through the film, he comes to realize that although pressure's on, he has to understand God hasn't left him. Although troubles are on, God hasn't left him. He's standing in a courthouse. God has not left him. There lies his going back and forth. But at the end of the day, he's got to find that for himself. And people every day are still struggling with that. It's not going to stop. Before you and I were born, people had to learn how to live by faith. We are living, and when we're gone, people are going to have to learn how to live by faith, by believing that they can do all things.
Now, is Canal Street like a metaphor in a sense? Because I think in myself, is there a Canal Street in Chicago? Like, no, the only famous Canal Street I know personally is in New Orleans.
Well, there's actually Canal Streets all over the world, but there is.
Is it Canal Street like Martin Luther King?
Yeah, if you're from Chicago, you know all about Canal Street.
Right.
So, yeah, this is Canal Street, Chicago, New York.
Canal Street, New York, Canal New Orleans, down in California has Canal Street. Everywhere you turn, if you look on your maps, you will find a Canal Street. The idea, though, behind Canal Street, a question not really asked, but asked, is the idea that a canal is an irrigation that pulls from a large body, and it's pulling all of the items of the water into a small body, pushing out that ship. into a larger body. That's the subject matter that we're dealing with. The subjects are long. It's a myriad of subjects that are being spoken of in the film.
Right.
And what we're doing is we're pulling it to the conversation, pulling it to the table. Everyone has to listen. Everyone has to learn. Everyone has to converse. And if we don't come to the table and meet in that center focus, we're not going to be able to go back out into the world and speak about it.
Right. I believe that this is a rather important time for not only filmmaking in general that relates to modern times, but also Black filmmaking. Me and a coworker of mine, we went to go see The Hate U Give last night, and we literally went back and forth like, was this in the book? Okay, that was in the book. And we also were like, okay, I'm glad they told this story. So what do you want audiences to kind of pull from what after they see Canal Street?
First of all, shout out to the filmmakers from The Hate U Give. That's my Columbia, Chicago alum. More Chicago filmmakers putting it down. I would love for people to walk away from Canal Street ready to talk, ready to discuss. What we do is unearth a lot of the truths and untruths that segregation and diversity, in America sometimes put people on and pit people on different sides. We wanted to put a film where everybody was represented. A lot of times people do the scapegoat or they give the excuse, well, they weren't really talking to me. That movie ain't really for me. So here we have a film that has all representations in the film. So you literally can have those conversations where people go behind closed doors and they talk about things. We literally are putting that, at the forefront. And we pray that it'll bring about a conversation and discussion. We're not going to come here and say like, hey, this film is going to change your life. But we hope that the conversation that you walk away from will be a part of the change. Because that's what we are. Cinema is so powerful, and within the right hands, with the right actors and the right filmmakers and the right minds and the vision, you could do something special.
Yeah. The power of forgiveness is so strong also in the film. At the end of the day, we want people to walk away with understanding that forgiveness is a healing for them individually, and then it's a healing for everyone they come in contact with. We want people to walk away with hope. This film does not leave you angry. This film allows you to actually have a good conversation and walk away warm, walk away feeling good about the idea that every diversity or ethnic background within the film was not only represented, but was able to have a voice. The voice and just being present makes a major difference. And when people walk away from Canal Street, we would have met our goal as Red Gorilla Entertainment, because everything that we do, it is our hope that we've ignited a good and a positive conversation.
Well, I hope it's an honest conversation we have after the film, because, sometimes people get in their feelings and they get in their feelings the wrong type of way. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you just want to bring people to the center and be like, no, we going to have to just figure this all out.
Look, I challenge you to be in your feelings after this movie. I challenge you.
And speak your truth. The Caucasian community will speak their truth from their prism. The Hispanic community, like myself, will speak it from their prism. Our brothers and sisters, of our Asian community will see it and speak from their prism. At the end of the day, the idea is that we have a voice. We all have a voice, and we're not afraid to have a conversation on the same table.
Well, Bishop, Ryan, I feel enlightened. I feel ready to see this film whenever I get a chance to see it. But I thank you so much. I thank you so much for being here. I can't wait for people to see Canal Street. I hope that it blows up and the conversation carries on well beyond the release date of January 19, 2019.
1/18/19.
Oh, 1/18/19.
1/18/19.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be there and we're gonna see it.
Hey, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.